Welcome to my expat stories. This one's rather different because Charles wasn't looking for romance. He's a 62-year-old widowed head teacher from Southampton, proper English gentleman, teaching English at a rural school in Udon Thani. Som was the volunteer coordinator. Married, 2 children, very professional. They worked together for months. Nothing happened. Nothing was said. But feelings developed. Unspoken. Restrained. Very British. Then the school needed a new building. Som showed him the plans, the quotes, the land purchase documents. Charles funded the lot. £34,000. Watched the construction through photos she sent. The building was real. Solid brick. Proper roof. If you've ever thought being proper and professional meant you couldn't be played, you'll want to hear this one. Here's Charles. I'm standing in a newly built classroom in rural Thailand, looking at children's drawings on the wall. Except it's not a classroom. It's a guest house bedroom. And those aren't children's drawings. They're tourist art the new owners put up for ambience. This was supposed to be a school building. I paid for a school building, £34,600 for a school building that became a guest house the moment I flew back to England. Frightfully embarrassing, really. Let me explain how one finds oneself in this position. My name is Charles. I'm 62 years old. I was a head teacher at a grammar school in Southampton for 26 years. Rather good at it, if I may say so. Decent retirement package. Nice pension. The school gave me a lovely send-off in June 2022. Gold watch. Speech from the board. All very proper. My wife Margaret died in March 2022, pancreatic cancer. 18 months from diagnosis to, well, we'd been married 38 years. No children, which was always rather a sadness for us, but we had each other. Then I didn't. After the funeral, after the retirement, I found myself rather at loose ends. The house in Southampton felt terribly empty. Margaret's things were everywhere. Her books, her garden tools, her reading glasses still on the bedside table where she'd left them. I couldn't quite bring myself to move anything. My colleague David suggested I do something useful. Get out of the house. He'd done volunteer teaching in Cambodia after he retired. Said it was jolly good for the soul. Gave one perspective. Purpose. Something to focus on other than the emptiness. So I looked into it. Found a legitimate charity organisation. Proper registered charity. UK-based. They placed volunteer teachers in rural schools across Thailand. One paid for one's own flights and accommodation. Taught English to children who wouldn't otherwise have access to native speakers. Seemed rather a good fit. I'd spent my entire career in education. Might as well put it to use. I applied in September 2022. They accepted me. Sent me off to a small village outside Udon Thani in northeast Thailand. Isan region. Rather poor area. Farming communities. The school had about 200 students. Primary age mostly. Lovely children. Eager to learn. The teachers were dedicated but stretched thin. My role was to teach English conversation 3 days a week. Basic stuff. Hello, how are you? My name is... I like football. That sort of thing. I arrived in October. The school arranged accommodation in a simple guest house nearby. £10 a night. Basic room. Fan, shared bathroom, but perfectly adequate. I'm not one for luxury. Never have been. The school's volunteer coordinator was a woman called Som, maybe 45 years old. Spoke excellent English. She'd studied in Bangkok, worked in hotel management for years, before moving back to help her ageing parents. Took the coordinator job at the school to stay close to home. She was married, had 2 children, a daughter at university in Khon Kaen, a son in secondary school in town. She showed me photos. Her husband Praser ran a small construction business. Built houses locally. She was frightfully professional. Organised. Efficient. She showed me around the school on my first day. Introduced me to the teachers. Explained the curriculum. The schedule. She'd arranged everything. Even put together a welcome pack with maps, restaurant recommendations, useful Thai phrases. Terribly thoughtful. I started teaching the following Monday. The children were delightful. A bit shy at first, but they warmed up quickly. We'd practice conversations, play word games. I'd bring in pictures from England, show them photos of Southampton, the sea. They were fascinated. Most had never left Isan. The idea of travelling to England was like discussing a trip to the moon. Som would pop into my classes occasionally, check how things were going, offer suggestions. She had a wonderful way with the children. They adored her, called her Crew Som, Teacher Som, though she wasn't technically a teacher. She'd laugh, ruffle their hair, ask about their families. She knew every child by name, knew which ones struggled at home, which ones needed extra support. I found myself rather looking forward to our conversations. She'd invite me to lunch at the school canteen. We'd eat rice and curry with the teachers. Talk about education, about the challenges rural schools face. She was passionate about it, wanted better for these children. Better facilities, better resources, better opportunities. She asked about my career, about Margaret. I told her. She listened, really listened. Said she was sorry for my loss. Said her mother had died 5 years ago. Pancreatic cancer as well. She understood what it was like. The emptiness. The grief that sneaks up on you at odd moments. I stayed for 3 months that first trip. By December, I felt more alive than I had since Margaret died. I had purpose again. The children were progressing. Their English was improving. I felt useful. Needed. When I left to spend Christmas in England with Margaret's sister, I rather missed the place. Back in Southampton, everything felt grey again. The house, the weather, the routine. I'd wake up thinking about the school, about the children, about Som organising activities, her laugh when something went wrong, the way she'd say, "My Penrai, never mind," when plans changed. I returned to Thailand in February 2023. Som met me at Udon Thani Airport. She didn't have to. I'd said I could get a taxi, but she insisted, said it was good to have me back. The children had missed me. She'd missed having someone to discuss education philosophy with. The other teachers were lovely but didn't share her vision for the school. Over the next months we worked together more closely. She asked my advice on curriculum changes, teaching methods. I helped her write funding applications for the charity. We'd meet after school sometimes, have coffee at a small shop in the village, talk about books, about life. She lent me Thai novels translated to English. I brought her books from England. P.G. Wodehouse. She found them hilarious. Said English humour was wonderfully absurd. Nothing happened. One must be frightfully clear about that. Nothing physical, nothing inappropriate. She was married. I was still grieving Margaret, really. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't develop feelings. Not the passionate sort, just a warmth, a fondness, an appreciation. I looked forward to seeing her, thought about her when I was alone, wondered what she was doing, what she was thinking. I never said anything, of course. Wouldn't be proper. She was married. She showed me photos of Pattaya, their home, their son's football matches, their daughter's graduation. She was devoted to her family. I was simply a colleague, a volunteer, a friend perhaps. Nothing more, but I did want to impress her. Wanted her to think well of me. When she mentioned challenges at the school, I'd offer solutions. When she worried about funding, I'd help write proposals. When she seemed stressed, I'd make tea and listen. In May 2023, during one of our afternoon coffees, she seemed particularly troubled. I asked what was wrong. She sighed, said the school was facing a crisis. The main building was deteriorating. Cracks in the walls, roof leaking. The local government had no budget for repairs. The charity had no funds. They'd applied everywhere. Nothing. At this rate, they'd have to close 2 classrooms, move those students into already overcrowded rooms. I said surely something could be done. She said unless someone donated a substantial amount for a new building, they were rather stuck. I asked how much. She said the quotes she'd received were around 1 million baht for a small 2-classroom building. Basic construction. About £24,000. I said I'd fund it. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head, said, "Charles, no, that's too much." I wasn't asking, I was just venting. I said, "One has the means. One's pension is rather generous. Margaret and I always plan to donate to education charities in our retirement. She'd approve of this." She said, "Are you certain? That's a lot of money." I said, "Quite certain. These children deserve proper facilities. If one can help, one should." She started crying, actually crying, said I was too kind, too generous, said the school would put up a plaque, name the building after me. The children would never forget what I'd done. I felt rather wonderful, I must admit, like I was doing something meaningful, something Margaret would be proud of. And yes, if I'm being honest, I wanted Som to see me as someone good, someone valuable, someone worth noticing, I suppose. She showed me the plans the following week. Architectural drawings, 2 classrooms, toilets, storage, all drawn up by a local architect. She showed me quotes from construction companies. Praset's company had submitted the lowest bid, 950,000 baht, about £23,000. The extra 50,000 baht would cover architect fees, permits, land preparation. I asked about the land. She said the school owned a plot adjacent to the main building, perfect for expansion. She showed me photos, cleared land, marked with stakes, ready for construction. It all seemed legitimate, professional. I'd been a head teacher for 26 years. I'd overseen building projects, extensions, renovations. This looked proper. Quotes, plans, permits. Everything one would expect. I transferred £24,000 in June. Som sent me a receipt. Official school letterhead, signed by the headmaster. Stamped. She sent photos of the land preparation, workers clearing, laying foundation. She sent updates every week. The walls going up, the roof frame, the windows being installed. I returned to England for July and August. Som sent photos throughout. The building taking shape, painted yellow, school colours. She sent photos of the children watching construction, excited, pointing, asking when they could use the new rooms. In September, she sent a photo of the completed building. 2 bright yellow classrooms, tiled floors, proper windows. I felt rather emotional. Margaret would have loved this. We'd talked about doing something like this, helping children, making a difference. Som said they'd have an opening ceremony when I returned. The children were practicing songs. The headmaster would give a speech. The local government official would attend. It would be rather special. I booked my flight for October. Couldn't wait to see it in person. To see the children in their new classrooms. To see Som's face when I arrived. But when I landed in Bangkok, Som didn't reply to my messages. I tried calling. Voicemail. I thought perhaps she was busy with the ceremony preparations. So I got a bus to Udon Thani, then a taxi to the village. I arrived at the school at midday. Som wasn't there. The headmaster looked uncomfortable when I asked for her. Said she'd left. Family emergency. Her daughter in Khon Kaen. She'd be back next week. I asked about the building. Could I see it? He looked even more uncomfortable. Said, which building? The one I'd funded. The 2 classrooms. He looked confused. Said there was no new building. No construction. Nothing. I walked with him to the plot of land Som had shown me. The land where the building was supposed to be, where the photos showed yellow classrooms with my name on a plaque. It was empty, just cleared land. No building. No foundation. No sign anything had ever been built there. I stood there rather confused. Said, but there are photos, weekly updates, the completed building, the sign with my name. The headmaster looked sympathetic. Said very gently, Mr. Charles, there is no building. Som showed you photos from another school maybe, or her husband built something somewhere else, but not here, not for us. And that's when one realised. One had been rather thoroughly deceived. I stood on that empty plot of land for quite some time. The headmaster had rather tactfully excused himself, left me to process things, process the fact that I'd sent £24,000 for a building that didn't exist. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos Som had sent, the foundation being laid, the walls going up, the yellow paint, the sign with my name. I zoomed in on the backgrounds, looked for anything identifiable. Trees, buildings, landmarks, nothing matched. The terrain was different. The trees were different. The building in the background of one photo was clearly not the school's main building. These photos weren't from this location at all. They were from somewhere else entirely. I felt rather foolish. Here I was, a head teacher of 26 years, a man who'd overseen building projects, checked budgets, verified contractors, and I'd been taken in by a few photos and a pleasant smile. I tried calling Som again, still voicemail. I sent a message. Som, I'm at the school, there's no building, please call me. We need to discuss this rather urgently. No reply. I went back to my guest house, sat on the bed, opened my laptop, went through every email, every message, every photo she'd sent, looking for, I don't know what, evidence, explanation, something to make sense of it. Then I noticed something. The receipt she'd sent. The official one on school letterhead. I'd assumed it was legitimate, but looking at it now, properly examining it, the logo was slightly wrong. The font didn't quite match. The signature didn't match the headmaster's signature on other documents I had. It was forged. Rather well forged, but forged nonetheless. I felt sick. £24,000. Gone. For a building that never existed. To a woman I trusted completely. The next morning I went to Som's house. The address was in the welcome pack she'd given me when I first arrived. A small house on the edge of the village. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. An elderly woman opened the door. Som's mother, I assumed. She looked confused, spoke no English. I said "Some" and gestured. She shook her head. Said something in Thai. Pointed down the road. A neighbour came over. Younger woman. Spoke a bit of English. I asked where Som was. She said Som left yesterday. Took her son. Went to Khon Kaen. Maybe Bangkok. No one knew. She'd told people family emergency. Her daughter was sick, but the neighbour seemed sceptical. Said Som did this before. Disappeared for months. Came back with money. Then everything normal again until she disappeared again. I asked about Prasert, Som's husband. The neighbour laughed. Not a kind laugh. Said Prasert and Som were divorced 5 years ago. He lived in Nong Khai now, remarried. The photos Som showed me of her husband and family. Either old photos or fake. The neighbour wasn't sure. I stood there rather stunned. So Som wasn't married. The family photos were lies. The devoted wife and mother image was a performance. Everything was a lie. I asked if anyone knew where the building was, the one in the photos. The neighbour shrugged. Said maybe Prasert built it. He did construction, but not here, somewhere else. Maybe he sold it. Maybe Som sold it. Who knows? I thanked her, went back to the guest house. Called the charity organisation in the UK. Explained everything. They were sympathetic but not particularly surprised. Said Som had been flagged before. Complaints from other volunteers. Nothing proven. She was very good at covering her tracks. They'd let her go from the coordinator position 6 months ago, but she'd continued operating independently, using old school letterhead, old contacts, scamming new volunteers who didn't know she'd been dismissed. I asked why they didn't warn me. They said they'd sent an email in April updating the volunteer list. Som was no longer listed, but I'd been working with her directly, hadn't checked the official list in months, assumed she was still legitimate. One's own fault, really. One should have verified. One should have checked. One should have been less trusting. But one had rather wanted to trust her, wanted to believe in her, wanted to help. And perhaps, if one is being honest, wanted her to see one as good, as kind, as someone worthy of her admiration. That's the bit that stings most, not the money, though £24,000 is nothing to sneeze at. But the realisation that she knew I had feelings for her. Unspoken, unacted upon, but there. And she used that. Used my desire to impress her, to be her hero, to make a difference in her eyes. I hired a local lawyer. Cost me another £1,000 just for the consultation. He looked at everything. The receipt, the photos, the emails. He said I could file a police report. Might get somewhere. Might not. Som was gone. The money was spent. Even if they found her, even if they prosecuted, I'd likely never see a penny back. He asked if the building existed. I said I think so. Just not at the school. He said so she did build something. Just sold it. Or her ex-husband did. Thai law is complicated. Proving fraud when a building exists somewhere is rather difficult. Proving she intended to defraud me versus simply changing plans? Nearly impossible. I filed the police report anyway. More for the principle than any expectation of justice. The officer was polite, took notes, said they'd investigate. I never heard from them again. I stayed in Thailand another week. Couldn't quite bring myself to leave. Partly because leaving felt like admitting defeat. Partly because I kept hoping Som would contact me. Explain. Apologise. Something. She didn't. On my 6th day there, I decided to find the building. I had the photos. I showed them to local taxi drivers. Asked if they recognised the location. The 4th driver I asked said yes. He knew that building. It was about 30 kilometres away, near Nong Khai. He could take me. The drive took 40 minutes. We went through several villages, rice fields, the occasional temple. Then the driver pointed. There it was, the yellow building from the photos, 2 classrooms, tiled roof, windows. Exactly as Som had shown me, but it wasn't a school, it was a guest house. A small sign out front, Barn Suk Guest House, rooms available. There was a Thai couple sitting outside, looked to be in their 50s. The owners, presumably. I got out, walked over. Said, "Excuse me, I'm terribly sorry to bother, but could I ask about this building?" The man spoke decent English. Said, "Yes, what about it?" I said, "When was it built?" He said, "About 4 months ago." May. They'd hired a construction company. Took 6 weeks. Been running it as a guest house since July, doing quite well. Tourists on their way to Laos stop here. I said, "Who built it?" He said, "A company called Prasert Construction. The owner was very professional. Good price, quality work." I felt the pieces clicking together. Som's ex-husband Prasert built this, used my money. Or Som gave him my money. They built it together maybe, then sold it to this couple. Pocketed the profit, split the proceeds. I asked how much they paid for it. The man said 400,000 baht, about £9,000. So Som had spent, maybe 15,000 building it? Kept the remaining 9,000? Or split it with Prasert? I asked if he knew Prasert. He said not really. Business transaction only. Prasert had a woman with him. His wife, maybe. Or partner. She handled the paperwork. English speaking. Very professional. Showed them photos of similar projects. References. Everything seemed legitimate. I asked what she looked like. He described Som perfectly. I thanked him. Went back to the taxi. Sat there staring at the building. My building. The one I'd paid for. The one with my name on a plaque that was never installed. Now a guest house. Making money for strangers. While Som and Prasert split my £24,000. Rather clever, actually. Build a real building. Sell it. Everyone's happy except the fool who funded it, thinking it was for charity. The taxi driver asked if I wanted to go inside, see the rooms. I said no. I'd seen quite enough. On the drive back, my phone pinged. A message. From Som. "Charles, I'm so sorry. There was a misunderstanding. The school changed their mind about the location. I tried to tell you, but you'd already transferred the money. I built the building anyway because you'd paid. But then the school said they couldn't use it. So I had to sell it. I'm trying to get your money back. Please be patient. I'm sorry for the confusion." Confusion. She called it confusion. I replied, "Som, I saw the building. I spoke to the owners. They bought it in July. You never told me the plans changed. You sent me photos pretending it was being built for the school. You lied about being married. You lied about being the volunteer coordinator. You used my trust and my feelings to steal £24,000. That's not confusion, that's fraud. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then. I didn't steal. I built what you paid for. Not my fault the school didn't want it. I had to recover costs. You'll get money back, I promise. Just need time." I replied, "How much time and how much money? You sold it for 9,000, I paid 24. Where's the other 15? No reply. I tried calling. Blocked. I sat in my guest house room that evening. Poured myself a whiskey from the bottle I'd brought from England. Margaret used to say I only drank whiskey when I was upset. She was right. I thought about Som, about our afternoon coffees, the books we'd shared, the conversations about education, the way she'd listened when I talked about Margaret, the way she'd cried when I offered to fund the building. Was any of it real? Did she actually care about the children? About education? About me, even a little bit? Or was it all performance? A long con. Months of building trust, building friendship, waiting for the right moment to ask for money, waiting until I cared enough about her opinion that I'd want to impress her. Want to be her hero. I suspect I'll never know, and perhaps it doesn't matter. The result is the same. £24,000 gone. A building exists somewhere making money for someone else. And I'm back in Thailand, alone, drinking whiskey and feeling rather foolish. The charity organisation offered to place me at a different school, different region, fresh start. I declined, said I'd rather just go home. They understood, said they were sorry, said Som had been particularly convincing. I wasn't the first, probably wouldn't be the last. That's what hurt. I wasn't even the first. I was just another Mark, another lonely widower with money and a desire to do good. Som had probably run this exact scam before, maybe multiple times. The building, the photos, the emotional connection, all of it a tested formula, and I'd fallen for it completely. I did try one more thing. I found Prezert's contact information through the guest house owners, called him. He answered. I explained who I was. He went quiet. Then he said, I'm sorry, some said you were sponsor. For charity project. I built building. She paid me. I didn't know you thought it was for school. I thought you knew it was investment. Some said you and her were business partners. Business partners? Right. I asked if he'd give me any of the money back. He said he couldn't. He'd been paid for construction work. He'd done the work. The money was spent on materials, labour, permits. He had nothing left to give back. I asked about Som, where she was. He said he didn't know. They were divorced, hadn't spoken in months until this project. She contacted him, said she had an investor. Foreign man, wanted to build a guest house. Could he do it? He'd said yes. He didn't know I thought it was for a school. Didn't know I thought Som was still married to him. He sounded genuine. Or perhaps I'm just a poor judge of character. Either way, the money was gone. £24,000, spent on a building I'll never benefit from, for a school that never received it, through a woman I rather fancied who was rather good at playing on those feelings. Jolly good show on her part, really. Terribly effective. I flew back to England 3 days later. Couldn't see the point in staying. Som wasn't going to contact me. The police weren't going to find her. The money wasn't coming back. One simply had to accept it and move on. The flight gave me rather a lot of time to think. 13 hours from Bangkok to Heathrow, sitting in economy, drinking terrible airline wine, thinking about how one ends up in such a position. I'd like to say I was angry, righteously indignant, but mostly I just felt embarrassed. A 62-year-old head teacher, educated, experienced, supposedly intelligent, taken in by a woman who used my grief and my unspoken feelings to steal £25,000. Because that's what it was, really. 24 for the building, another 1,000 for the lawyer, £25,000 gone. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about believing someone cared, believing I'd found a friend, a connection, someone who understood what it was like to lose someone, to feel that emptiness, to want to do something meaningful with the time one has left. Som made me believe she shared that desire, made me believe we were working towards something good together, made me believe I mattered to her, even just as a colleague, as a friend, as someone whose opinion she valued, and perhaps some of it was real. Perhaps she did care about education. Perhaps she did want to help those children. Perhaps she even liked me in her way. But she liked my money more, and when the opportunity arose to take £25,000 by building a guest house instead of a school, she didn't hesitate. Can't really blame her, I suppose. From her perspective, I was a wealthy foreigner. Retired, comfortable pension, nice house in England. £25,000 was probably more money than she'd see in years. Why not take it? Why not build something she could profit from instead of a charity project that would benefit others? It's rather logical when one thinks about it. Morally questionable, certainly. But logical. I arrived back in Southampton on a Thursday. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. Margaret's reading glasses still on the bedside table. Her garden tools in the shed. Her books on the shelf. I'd been gone nearly a year, on and off, travelling back and forth to Thailand, and nothing had changed. Except me, I suppose. I opened a bottle of Margaret's favourite wine, sat in the garden. It was October. Bit chilly. But I needed to be outside. Needed air. I imagined what Margaret would say if she knew what I'd done. She'd probably laugh. Not unkindly. Just that gentle laugh she had when I'd done something foolish but well-intentioned. She'd say, "Oh, Charles, you dear silly man. You tried to save the world again, didn't you?" And I'd say, yes, I tried. And I failed rather spectacularly. She'd say, "But you tried. That counts for something." Would it, though? Does trying count when you end up funding a guest house while thinking you're building a school? Does good intention matter when you're being played? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. My sister Jane came round the following week. I told her I was back, but not why. She asked about Thailand, about the teaching. I said it didn't work out. She asked why. I told her everything. She was furious, said I should report Som to Interpol, to the British Embassy, to every authority possible. Said Som should be in prison. Said I should hire a proper lawyer. Get the money back. I said, what's the point? Som's gone. The money's spent. A building exists, people are using it. The only person who loses if I pursue this is me. More legal fees, more stress, more time dwelling on it. Jane said, "That's very philosophical of you." I said, "Is it? Or is it just accepting that one has been rather thoroughly bested?" She said, "Charles, you were trying to help children. That's not being bested. That's being decent and having someone take advantage of it." Perhaps she's right. But it doesn't change the outcome. £25,000. Gone. For a guest house in rural Thailand that I'll never see again. That has nothing to do with education or charity or helping anyone except Som and her ex-husband. I thought about going back to teaching. Local schools sometimes need substitute teachers. Or I could tutor. A-levels. Help students with university applications. I've certainly got the experience. But I couldn't quite muster the enthusiasm. The whole point of going to Thailand was to feel useful again. To feel like I was making a difference. To fill the emptiness Margaret left. And I'd done that for a while. Those months teaching English. Seeing the children improve. Working with Som on curriculum projects. It felt meaningful. Until it wasn't. Until it was just another scam. Another lonely foreigner getting played. Another story for the locals to laugh about. Remember that English man? The teacher? Some got him for £25,000. Built a guest house. He thought it was for the school. I'm sure they're still laughing about it. Can't really blame them. It is rather funny. In a tragic sort of way. I did check one thing. Out of curiosity. I looked up Ban Suk Guest House online. Found it on booking.com. Reviews were good. Clean rooms. Friendly owners. Great value. Perfect stopover on the way to Laos. 4.3 stars out of 5. My £25,000 at work. Making budget travellers happy. While I sit in Southampton drinking wine and wondering how I became such a credulous fool. I haven't told anyone else. Just Jane. It's too embarrassing. My colleagues from the school ask how retirement's going. I say fine. Keeping busy. They don't need to know I spent £25,000 on a woman who pretended to care about me and used that to fund her business venture. David asked if I'd go back to volunteer teaching. Different country, maybe. Different organisation. I said no. I think my volunteering days are rather behind me now. He said that's a shame. Said I had a lot to offer. I said perhaps, but one prefers not to offer it to people who'll use it to build guest houses. He didn't ask further questions. I've started going to the local library. There's a reading group. Older people mostly. Widows and widowers. We discuss books, have tea, it's pleasant. No one asks for money. No one pretends to need my help. We just read books and talk about them. It's rather soothing. One of the women, Patricia, mentioned she'd been to Thailand once. Loved it. Beautiful country. Lovely people. I said yes, rather lovely indeed. She asked if I'd been. I said yes. Once or twice. She asked if I'd go back. I said no. I don't think so. She asked why not. I said it's a long journey at my age. Easier to travel closer to home. She accepted that. Didn't push. I appreciated it. The truth is I can't face going back. Not because I hate Thailand. I don't. The country's lovely. The children were wonderful. The school was legitimate. It was just Som who wasn't. But going back would mean confronting what happened. Seeing that empty plot of land where the building should have been. Or worse, seeing the guest house and knowing my money made that possible. Better to stay in Southampton. Stick to my books, my reading group, my garden, my memories of Margaret. At least those are honest. At least those don't cost £25,000. I did receive one more message from Som. About 2 months after I returned to England, she sent a photo. Her and her son, smiling, standing in front of a new car. Toyota. Looked expensive. The message said, "Thank you for your help. My son is very happy. I hope you are happy too." I stared at that photo for quite some time. Her son, the one I'd never met. The one she'd shown me photos of. Playing football, studying. The devoted mother supporting her child's education. Except now she's bought him a car with my money. Or some of it anyway. I didn't reply. What would be the point? She knows what she did. I know what she did. The car is bought. The guest house is running. The money is gone. I deleted the message, blocked her number. One doesn't need reminders. Jane asked me recently if I regretted it. The whole Thailand experience. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I said no, not entirely. Those months teaching were genuine. The children learned. I helped them. That was real. The conversations with Som about education, about books, about life, some of that was probably real too. Or real enough. She's a person, not a cartoon villain. She probably did enjoy those conversations. She probably did care about the children. She just cared about £25,000 more. Jane said, "That's very generous of you." I said, "Is it generous? Or is it just accepting that people are complicated? That they can care about education and steal money at the same time? That they can be kind and cruel? That they can make you feel valued while using you?" She said, "When did you become so philosophical?" I said, "When one loses £25,000, one has rather a lot of time to think about human nature." She laughed, said at least I kept my sense of humour. I said one has to, really. Otherwise one would just sit in this house forever, staring at Margaret's reading glasses, drinking whiskey, and feeling sorry for oneself. And Margaret wouldn't have wanted that. She'd have wanted me to move on, to accept what happened, to learn from it, to perhaps be a bit more careful next time, but to keep living. So that's what I'm doing. Living. Reading books. Attending my group. Puttering in the garden. Existing. It's not exciting. It's not meaningful. But it's honest, and after Thailand, one rather appreciates honesty. I won't be going back to volunteer teaching. Won't be funding any more charity projects. Won't be developing unspoken feelings for married women who turn out not to be married. One learns one's lessons eventually, even if they cost £25,000. That's my story. £25,000 for a guest house I thought was a school. Built by a woman I rather fancied who used those unspoken feelings to her advantage. The building exists. It has good reviews on booking.com. I'm back in Southampton. Reading books. Missing Margaret. Feeling rather foolish, but accepting that this is simply what happened. Jolly good show on Som's part. Terribly effective con. One must admire the execution, even while lamenting being the mark. And that was Charles's story. A 62-year-old widowed head teacher from Southampton who went to Thailand to teach English and do something meaningful after his wife died. He met Som, the volunteer coordinator. She was professional, kind, married with children, and they became friends. He developed unspoken feelings. She knew. When the school needed a building, he funded it. £25,000. The building was real. It just became a guest house, not a school. Som disappeared. Charles found the building making money for strangers. He's back in Southampton now, reading books with a library group, not volunteering anymore, not going back to Thailand, just living quietly with Margaret's memory, and the lesson that good intentions don't protect you from being played. Have you ever had unspoken feelings that someone used to their advantage? Let us know in the comments, and if you've got a story from Thailand, we'd jolly well like to hear it. This is my expat stories. Mind how you go, old bean. Chocks away, old boy.